Hi, I'm Yano, aka Fem from the Block, and I'm going to give you a little breakdown of my Lego stop motion animation, Something Brickéd This Way Comes. I animated all of it in October of 2020, and then October 2021, I just released a special edition, adding more sound effects and title sequences in, and doing just a couple slight tweaks to the edit, but pretty much how I animated everything last year. Here we go. So I made these title sequences in stud.io, a Lego Studio render program. I exported it with some scratch marks and on a transparent background, and then used Adobe Premiere to add them into this video. There's a lot of great practical lighting effects that I'm playing with here. So I was using multiple blacklights on this, a couple like bar UV USB powered lights in the background to illuminate the stars and moon. And then I had like a little flashlight for these special effects. So just gonna, or going backwards right now, but this is, so here's this little sequence of the witch flying up. And when you can see like the little clear display stand that she's on right now, but all of these parts, I'm just using like sticky tack to stick her to the background. You can see just for one frame, there's like a little bar holding her. And then once she's up here on that little display stand. So I was having this concept that this character, the villain in the tower, controls skeletons and ghosts. He's like a necromancer. And so this witch is trying to destroy him, and a ghost is coming up to protect him. So that like bright purple light that's making the glow in the dark and neon green pieces glow, that's all powered by a UV light, little flashlight. And I had this idea that the ghost would like ghost in and out, disappear. So that happens here just for a frame, and then comes back and it's like reflecting the power back. And so that again is held on with sticky tack, the little power blast coming off of the ghost. You can kind of see it behind that little disc piece, and ghost disappears, comes back, UV flashlight. So, oh, and then the ghost, the witch falling is fun, and ghost disappears, reappears, and is gone. So just real quick to be able to see that all together as one sequence. And then the sound effects, which I add, really sell it. And then that's a great freeze. So here, you know, Friends mini dolls are not as articulated as Lego minifigures. And I had a lot of fun. I knew I wanted to use one of those characters in this just because you don't see them animated very often. And, you know, I'm all for fempowerment, obviously. I love the idea of this, these diverse skin tones represented in this coven of witches. And there are 7 witches and 7 skeletons in this fight sequence, but not all of them get like a lot of focus on them. So this mini doll, I really like went with it and kind of, I wanted it to feel like kind of a stoic warrior, like almost like a samurai that doesn't move any more than is necessary. I studied Aikido a bit as a kid, which is a martial art that's defensive, and it's all about like getting out of the way and deflecting power from your attacker back at them. So you can see if you watch the witch's feet, the one with the mohawk, as the skeleton is coming, she just steps out of the way and puts her axe down and swings into it. It's almost like she's using the skeleton's momentum to cut itself in half. You can see that body is held on with sticky tack there to the axe itself, falling. Some of these, I have like a little Bluetooth shutter remote. Sometimes you have to like push it really fast if something's kind of delicately balancing before it falls. And so she, you know, follows through with the swipe and comes back for more. And so again, like if you watch her feet, the cape helps kind of disguise and sell some of the movement. And if you watch her feet, like you're able to kind of just like jump from one stud to another. You're able to like kind of pivot a little bit off of the studs, half off of the studs to get some motion. And then, you know, she like swipes and just freezes. Cause again, I was going for that stoic motion. And the skull that's in midair, again, this is like held on to the set with sticky tack. You can see the trees wiggling a little bit because it's being stuck to it. And then I just this idea came very organically to me. I've been writing stories my whole life, so this kind of just happens sometimes where an idea almost gets a mind of its own. And I was like, the skeletons are destroyed, but then they come back together. So had a lot of fun rolling these pieces back into place. And you can see the hair is like, knock the headphones right off, trying to do like a little hair shake, and then the skull spinning. You know, that's a little bit tricky because you have to take the hairpiece off, rotate the head. And then if you were not paying attention to the background, I like this idea that the Mohawk witch, she like uses her axe on a skeleton with so much momentum that it like swings her upside down, and then the skeleton that the axe is stuck into swings upside down. So many things happen in this that you would never see if I weren't doing this, which is why I wanted to do this. And I definitely learned a lot doing this for any future action sequences I animate, that if I want the audience to actually understand what's going on, I need to be shooting at a higher frame rate. This is probably about 12 frames per second, maybe 15. I was toggling around a lot because the apps that I've used, you can usually change how many frames, but basically the more frames, the closer to 30 frames, which is what live action is usually shot at. The closer to that number, the smoother the movement is, the fewer frames, the jerkier the movement is. Personally, I don't mind that. I think it adds to the charm of stop motion animation, but you lose a lot of the details in what's going on here and in how I shot it. And then this is some more just like fun lighting effects for this witch in the front with the braided bun. She's got red power, so I was using this little bicycle light to shine on her power effects, and that's a fun little parts usage. So doot doot doot. And then in the background, our main hero, who I call Vivi, who's the vampire witch, she's getting stomped on by a skeleton and really wrestling with her. She kind of swings at her. That skeleton dives out of the way. And then she's like reacting to the skeleton's head being knocked off and misses that her attacker is flipping out of the way. That background action, I was, you know, just barely moving those things to try and have something happening. But again, knowing what I know now, would have broken this all up into fewer shots. There's another good power blast. So boom, you see the little hairpiece on the green part. And the one leg left like just blasted that skeleton apart. So I had a lot of fun, obviously. I don't know how many hours this took me. Yeah, that's another topic for another day. So yeah, and then we get the multiplane effect. So this was something I really wanted to do. It's an animation used in like 2D traditional animation where there's like plates of glass with different depths. I remember as a kid watching Bambi and really noticing how, wow, the foreground doesn't move, or sorry, the background doesn't move, but the foreground moves at different speeds depending on how close it is to you, which is something I also remember noticing, like staring out of windows of cars when I was a kid. So I've always been, that person that's super observant of my natural landscape, and I do think that helps a lot when you're animating. So what I was doing here is this is all felt. We're going backwards now. This is felt across the floor, which is nice and soft. And then I had some smooth Lego pieces on the underside of these set pieces. And the background is attached to my wall. And then everything else is on a little desk. And so I had, foreground trees and then trees behind the character. And the character is basically staying still. And I was, it's not real precise. I learn while I'm doing. So I tried to do like the background moved half as much as the foreground. And you can see there's a little warlock with a gray beard in that lighthouse windmill back there. And yeah, just had a lot of fun with all the different details and just having little chunks of scenery which would repeat. I had like different like modular pieces that would switch from background and foreground as I was doing these tracking shots. And then this house was a lot of fun to build, and completely unnecessarily, because I wasn't actually thinking of animation when I shot this, or sorry, when I built this little hut. The interior of this hut actually is inside of this hut. It's on a 16 by 16 base plate. I built it for a 16 by 16 build challenge for Tricky Bricks, which was one of the things that inspired this. Also love my use of snakes as vines in this tree. So these doors, open, but then the whole building opens, hinges open, and reveals this. And I had to do some very tricky lighting with fairy lights and taping black paper behind it so it wouldn't reflect back on the background, so that I got like the lighting effect. Even from the outside, you can see along the side here some of the light coming through these little stained glass windows on the side, which just adds a nice warm light to it. So this is another favorite sequence of me and others who have seen this. Much better with sound effects now. But this, yeah, practical lighting effects, again, I just had that bike light and that little UV light. So here's my little red bike light. And that was backwards, this is forward. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 frames to get that effect, which is, half a second. But, I was thinking a lot about like chemical reactions of like having, something that opens and closes, it expands and retracts. So all of these effects have that. The drawer, I've seen people do a lot of cool drawer builds of like using different things to have an open drawer. This is just a brick because I didn't have pieces in dark red that would be better than a brick, but it works for what I'm doing. And then I think one of the funniest things is this snake, when she's pulling it out, because it's a brick and there's no depth to the drawer, goes from one plate to a brick, which is 3 plates long. It's actually, the snake is a sausage when she's starting to pull it out, because a sausage is shorter than a snake, and then it becomes a snake when it's fully out. So, and then to get the snake to wiggle, I'm just turning it in her hand, which has a great wiggle effect, and then becomes a sausage again, because that pot doesn't have a lot of depth to it either, and then disappears from the pot. The bone, it's kind of foreshortened. Like I had it angled so you can't see the full length of the bone to make it appear smaller. And then, she turns it sideways so you can see So that also just gives the sense of something getting smaller and bigger, even though it's the same piece, just at different angles. And a lot of these ideas I was having and had no idea if they were working until I saw them, but I'm pretty happy with it. And yeah, I wanted these explosions to all be a little different. So the purple one is using the black light instead of that last one that used the red bike light. And I wanted this one to be a little bit more vaporous, a little like bigger of a cloud. So you can see I had fun. I don't know how easy it is to pick up on, but that face has like a smile and a scared expression. To me, it reads as scared. So like, I liked that she's reacting to the explosions. And the bubbles go down, and then she puts this crystal in there. And this, of course, is the black light. And this one, I wanted it to be a little bit longer of a reaction because chemical reactions happen at different speeds. So it was like, she's leaning in, is it gonna do it? Oh, there it is. And then she's got the scared expression. So yeah, here, let's just watch that all together now that we've seen it frame by frame. So again, I would have shot this at a higher frame rate and taken more time with it if it wasn't such a like random project that just came into my head and I had to do, and I had to finish by Halloween so I could premiere it on Tricky Brick's Halloween live stream, and the things we do for art. But able to spend a little more time over this past year and add in the sound effects, at least. Just had the music originally. And so I liked the idea that the wings would come out of this cauldron and fly with her. Also, for a lot of these flight sequences, I wanted her and the cauldron to kind of bob up and down. So you can see, oh, perfect frame. I'm actually using a bottle piece to hold her up right now, which is taller than a brick. I think it's like a brick and 2 plates. I'm not sure. And then we've got, oh, maybe it's 2 bricks height, because then I've got a brick and 2 studs. So just changing the height of these things creates this like bobbing motion that I really liked. Oh, there's a Bigfoot that I even forgot was there. And wings just fold in magically. Oh, and just real quick, the clouds, if you actually like watched the clouds throughout this whole thing, you would see them like notice that they're very like jerky and will like pause a couple frames because I forgot to move them, and like so to me, especially with something so action-packed like this, if everything's moving so quickly, I wouldn't worry too much about all of the finer details, because if you're doing your job as a storyteller, people aren't going to pay attention to them. They're just going to notice that the clouds are moving and add a sense of realism to it. So that's my school of thought on it, at least. And so these Ninjago spinner pieces, this is an older style that has these clips on them. So I was able to like add these crystals onto it, which actually came with that spinner set. Those crystals came in that set, which I got to get a bunch of these crystals. And I think this is something where I actually shot more of it than I used, and it looked too slow and like too weird, and I edited it down. So in an ideal world, you're only animating what is going to appear on screen, and that's why big studios do lots of storyboarding and animatics and planning. Since I'm doing all the editing myself as well, sometimes I like to give myself a little extra footage, or not intending to, but then once I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, it looks weird that character started moving at the beginning of the shot. I should like cut a few frames in so they're already moving when it starts. Like, that's just, yeah. So sometimes I animate more than I actually need. And then this creature, I just loved the idea of seeing it like grow and come to life from this like larva pupil state. So there's like a weird, haven't talked about the sound effects. I use freesound.org, which is like a crowdsourced sound effects site. I have not yet contributed to that site, but I probably should, because I've had a lot of fun using it. And so there's like just a couple of the sound effects going on here. there's like the staff knocking the pot, which I found a sound effect of someone stirring a teacup, and I slowed it down to I think 30%, so it's a little deeper. And then there's I think the squishy sound someone said they made with noodles, so I wanted while the creature is forming to have this kind of like squishy sound. Those are some of the sound effects that you're hearing now. And then the dog noises. Those are all, someone had uploaded their maljwilliams, Igor. So that one, I think, was regular pitch. And then this one I slowed down a little bit. When you slow a sound down, again, I'm doing that in Adobe Premiere, which is what I use to edit, not what I use to animate, but that's where I put the footage and chop it together. So you can slow things down in there, and it gives it a deeper tone when something's slower. So it was a nice, to me, like I was thinking, you know, as the creature gets bigger, that its voice might get a little deeper. And this running sequence was one of the trickiest things to animate, because when I built this character, I wasn't thinking of animating with it. So had I planned that, I might have given it articulation and ball joints with tension that could hold their form. Instead, it's like a very delicate, awkwardly shaped creature, which kind of goes with the character. I think its character is kind of formed around those restrictions. But you can see that front leg is at a 90-degree angle, and there is no movement in between like straight up and down and 90 degrees. So again, like how I was talking about the cape obscuring the friend's motion, having this moving foreground was a great way to obscure a lot of the motion, and would just go, let's see, let's go back to the sequence. So you can see, yeah, just like leg straight out for a few frames, leg down for a few frames. And I'm rebuilding, I'm like taking it apart and rebuilding it as I go. So you can see it's starting to get the big head on the little body right now. And then when it comes out of the next bit of scenery, it's got the lower jaw, I think, and is, oh, I'm sorry, I was going backwards. And then the antenna horn pieces, especially in that close-up shot, whenever you can't see the top of those, I have my finger on them and I'm like wiggling it back and forth to get that motion from side to side, which goes a long way to giving it the sense that it's running. This is another fight sequence I had a lot of fun with. I'm pretty sure I animated all of the fight sequence stuff at once and then chopped it into the beginning and end. So you can be strategic about that if you plan far enough ahead. But I liked this idea that these skeletons can't, you know, they've just got swords to fight them with, that, or even the magic blasts are like breaking them apart, but then they come back together because it's, you know, the power of Lego. So this one is super creepy, all these extra claws and coming back together. And then if you look in the background, hopefully you're focusing on that foreground fight, these two characters are having a sword fight as well. I'm going backwards right now, back to the beginning of it. So here we go. So the one with the axe swings, that one kind of deflects and knocks it over, and it drops its axe. And then that witch in the back cuts an arm off, and the skeleton rolls out of the way. The witch goes after it. And that was partially just to get that out of the way so I could focus on the action that was happening here for a few frames. But then that skeleton runs back to get its arm, and this witch comes and stabs it in the back. So again, these are things that happen too fast to really see. Wish I had spent more time, but that's what we're doing now. And so that witch in the back takes this skeleton and knocks it into the other one. So you may notice that some of the sound effects I use for the skeletons breaking apart, it's actually a bowling ball pins getting knocked over. So if you listen. And then for the bones coming back together, and I use this in the beginning fight sequence, it's dice rolling. So again, those are all sourced from freesound.org. But I think for sound design, if that's something you're interested in, really thinking outside of the box of like, what in real life sounds like this thing? Because sometimes, I mean, not that this sound effect exists in real life necessarily, but sometimes, you know, even the real sound that something makes doesn't translate in a video to being that thing. So it's really cool to like think outside of the box about what sounds you could use and what sounds other people may have already recorded and thought about repurposing. So that growling is again that maljwilliams from freesound.org that is slowed down, so it's more deeper and guttural. Or actually, I'm sorry, I think this is a lion. Do not mean to give a bad name to maljwilliams. I think this is a lion, but I think I still slowed it down a little bit. And some crunching sound effects. And so this all just happened so fast. There's not a lot of details in what I was doing. This is, you know, up till 4 a.m. the night before I'm supposed to submit it. Moment, just trying to get that last shot. I think, yeah, come to think of it, I don't think I knew just how it was going to end when I started to animate, which is another lesson. I think animation can sometimes be like improvisation. I don't know if anyone's ever taken an improv class, but you know, you kind of, in that you might react to your scene partner. And with animation, I find as I'm doing things, that the characters kind of tell me what they want to do. Like with that friend stall, like I don't know that I had a clear idea of how I was going to animate her when I started, but the restrictions of the puppets you're working with, or like, you know, if they bump into something, having them react to bumping into that thing that you might not have thought of. There's a certain element of, you know, there's a saying, acting is reacting. So with animation, you are the actors and you have to kind of put yourself in the minds of these little things you're moving around and like, well, how would I react within this situation? And so here's another necromancer shot. And of course, I was kind of setting up a sequel, which I don't know that I'll ever do, that they don't actually defeat the main bad guy. But that was another really fun one to play with. You know, the ghost kind of ghosting in and out and like playing with different levels of black light to get a brighter glow. And I liked this idea that the ghost would just like encircle the necromancer, and then necromancer ghosts out for a second, comes back, and then it's gone. So that was a fun sequence to animate as well. All of this I have a lot of fun with. And if you're not having fun, don't do it. But I think it's fun, and I hope that you enjoyed that, and I hope that you get a lot out of it. Also, this is an original music, original song by my band, The Sweet Trade. I wrote and I'm playing ukulele, and then my bandmate Sean Frederick is playing violin and fully recorded and produced it. It's available on iTunes, and you can support me at patreon.com starting at $1 a month. And that, you know, gets you exclusive and early access to some of my work. And, you know, it's just, if you like what I'm creating and want me to be able to keep focusing on that, then that's a great way to help support me. So thank you so much for watching. That's it for now. I do have some other animations in the work. I would love to do a sequel to that one day, but I don't have immediate plans. I tried to like keep everything built for a while, but that was a year ago now. Everything's dismantled. So yeah. All right, gonna catch my breath now. Thank you again so much for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.